Hello everybody, welcome to the first video in a new series called Board Chasers, where myself, Jason, and my wonderful daughter here, Maddie, are going to be looking at various board games, new games that are coming out, and maybe even look at some classics eventually. Specifically designed these videos to help parents and children find the next games that they can play together. The reason for the name Board Chasers, can you tell us why we chose the name Board Chasers, Maddie?
Because we like storms and we saw that Ryan was Storm Chasers, but we just switched out the name to Board.
Yeah, so you're going to see some weather terminology as we do these types of things, and we'll refer to our reviews as forecasts and predictions because both Maddie and I have a very fine affinity for weather and all things related to meteorology, and we also have a love for board games, and so these reviews are going to kind of be in that theme, I guess you could say. And so our first look at a game is a game that I just taught Maddie to play about a week or so ago. That is the new release from Deepwater Games of Welcome to. The game says it plays 1 to 100 because it is a flip and fill game in which you are actually flipping cards and filling in sheets in which everybody can play at the exact same time. It says that the age range is for ages 10 and up, and it plays in about 25 minutes. My daughter here is under 10, and she handles this game pretty well. And so I'm gonna go down to the table here in a few moments to kind of show you how the game plays, and then Maddie and I will return up top where we'll give you our forecast and prediction for this game. All right, so the setup as you see it right here is set up for a two-player game. When you're setting up the game, each person's going to get a player aid. The player aid is going to show them how to score each one of the different symbols on the cards. It's also going to give you your end game conditions. You'll have a deck of the cards. These are the construction cards. On each of the construction card, you'll have construction symbol, and then on one side you'll have the number, and on either side of the card, it's going to tell you what type of construction symbol is going to come up next. Now the cards are numbered 1 through 15. In addition to that, once you kind of get everything set up, you're going to have to take this deck of cards. You'll shuffle it all together. You'll divide it out into 3 separate even piles, so you'll have these 3 piles that all players will be using to play. You'll then go through the plan cards that are there, and there's 3 different sets of cards. Each one of the cards has different requirements that you need to fulfill in order to be able to score the points. Like to give you an example on this card right here, you can see that you need to have 1 estate of 1 home, 2 estates of 2 homes apiece, and then 1 estate of 3 homes to be able to complete this card. First person to get this will get the 11 points. The card will then be flipped, and then everybody else that completes it thereafter will get 6 points. And so you have 3 of those goals that everybody's trying to attain themselves. Now the way it works on this sheet right here is the first thing you're going to do is name your city, whatever it's going to be. All right, you can see that there are 3 rows of homes. Each row of homes contains a different number of houses. It does not contain 15, and so there will be certain numbers that you might not use as you're placing the numbers in the homes. Now the goal of the game is to score the most victory points down here by placing your homes and using the different symbols to score different points. And so let me show you how this works. All right, so when the game starts, after everybody's named their homes, you're going to go ahead and flip over 1 of each card. Now basically what this allows people to do is it allows the people that are playing the game to then now choose, are they going to use the 5 with the fence, the 8 with the fence, or the 5 at the park. All right, so how it works is when you're placing your, when you're writing in the numbers of the homes, you do have to write them in numerical order. And so you can't have a 5 here and then go back and place an 8 here. But you don't have to use them all. And so you could potentially place a 3 with a pool here and then put a 1 or a 2 here. It doesn't matter. Now the way it works with all the different symbols is that, first off, these areas right here are areas that after you scored one of these one of these objectives, you would then place the number of how much you scored right there. If somebody completes all 3 objectives, that's one of the ending conditions of the game. As far as these different symbols and how they work, you can see that I have a 5 and a park, and so if I wanted to do that right now, excuse my reach, I would go ahead and say, I'm going to use the 5 in the park, fill in one of these with a 5, and then I'll X off the park up here, so you can kind of see how I did that. I used the 5 with the park, I X'd it off. Throughout the game, as you fill in numbers in this row of homes, or numbers in this row of homes, or numbers in this row of homes, for each park that you're gonna that you use, you'll then cross off one of these numbers. So that tells me right now, if the game were to end right now, I would get 2 points for parks in this row. And so in the bottom row, you can get a maximum of 18. In the middle row, you can get a maximum of 14. In the top row, you can get a maximum of 10. You would then place those numbers here at the end of the game, add them down, and that's what you would score for your parks. The next one is pools. Now pools, if they were to come up and it was a 5 in a pool, I could place that 5 in a pool in any one of these spots. You just cross off the pool, and then for every pool you would that you would actually use, you'd end up crossing off one of these. And so if we ended up using like 4 pools during the game, I'd have 4 of these crossed off, and at the end of the game I'd put a 13 down here. The construction marker, I'm not sure exactly, I don't remember specifically what it's called, but it basically allows you to manipulate or modify any one of the numbers. So if it was sitting up here like this, right, a 5 with a construction marker, I could then actually make that 5, 3, a 4, a 5, a 6, or a 7. That does allow you to go above 15. If you had a 15 here, you could do 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So it gives you a little bit more of a leeway. So if you are stuck in a situation where, let's say you had a 5 placed in each area, and so that way you couldn't actually use this 5, I could actually manipulate this 5 to be a different number and place it somewhere. If you do that, you'll cross off one of the construction markers. In a solo game, I believe it's you have to have 6 of these marked off before you could score the points. But in a game where you have more players, the person who's used the most will get 7 points. The next most will get 4, and the least will be 1. The next one that we're looking at is this guy right here, which is kind of real estate, is what I like to refer to it as. And this one refers to this entire block right here. Basically, what this does is this allows you to modify the points that you're going to score for each estate that you have. Now, the estates, which we'll talk about in a few moments, are groups of homes that are fenced in, that are 1 or 2 homes, or 3 homes, or 4 homes, or 5 homes, and so on. And so for every estate that you have up here, if I had like 3 estates of 3 homes each, right now that would be worth 3 points apiece. And so at the end of the game, I would look at exactly how many estates I have of each type. And if I had 3 of the 3 home estates, I'd put a 3 down here. 3 times 3 is 9. The nice thing about this is if I were to place a 5 with an estate and I crossed that off, now every 3 home estates are worth 4 points. So it'd be 3 times 4, which would make 12 points. Now, as far as the estates go, those are where the fences come into play. And so the way that works is I have a 4 with a fence right here. And so that means that I can place this 4 somewhere, and then I can actually either fence in either side of this. All right. And so if I'm looking to try to get a 3 home estate, because maybe I want to try to get to this card here, which would require me to have a 3 home estate, 2 home estates, and a 1 home estate, I could then place that 4 right there, and then you would indicate that there's a fence on that side of the home. Now, all I need to do to finish that estate is get a number placed in here and a number placed in here. And so let's say we had a 2 and then a 3. To finish off the estate, you would just do something like that, and that would be a 3 home estate. Now, notice that I did not have to put a fence there. If you see, the fences are only placed in the areas in which they have the dotted lines. And so if you do fence in a home, if you do have an estate where you put like a 1 with a pool here, and then you have a 2 where you fenced 1 in, depending on the cards, that would automatically fence this in and create a 1 home estate. All right. And so at the end of the game, you're going to total up how many of these estates you have. And these are the ways that you kind of finish those objective cards. Now, there are some expert objective cards that require you to do different things. We're not going to get into that right now because I just wanted to stick with the base rules of the game. Now, there is another card that can come up. Let's see if I can search for one of them in here. That has a mailbox with a little business on it. That's this symbol right here. Now, there's some positives and negatives to using the business. Now, what it allows you to do is it does allow you to place a 5 in this case out anywhere. And let's say we did that one with this one right here. But that allows you to duplicate any other number one time. And so it's a situation where if you are stuck somewhere where you can't really fill in another number because of the way you kind of placed your homes, I could put the 5. I would X off this first one here. And now you can see that that tells me that at the end of the game that's going to be a negative point because you can see it subtracts. But then I can actually go and duplicate one of the numbers right next to one of the homes. It has to be directly next to it, and you just put a BIS next to it to indicate that you've done that. Obviously, the more you use of those cards, the more negative points there are going to be. As far as ending the game conditions, there are 3 game ending conditions. The first one is the first person in the game to go ahead and fill in every single one of their homes and all the rows. So if somebody does that, the game ends at that point, and then everybody begins to total up their scores. The other one is if somebody finishes all 3 of the objective cards. First person who does that will end the game. And the next one is there are situations based on how you place your numbers in your homes in which you might have to either skip or forego placing one of the numbers because you can't. If you do that, you would just X one of these spots saying that you're unable to place. If there's somebody that does that 3 times, the moment that somebody does that, the game is over as well. At the very end, you'll total up the number of points that you have across, subtract any negatives that you might have, and then you'll pop your score there. The person with the highest score wins. All right, folks, that's how you play Welcome To. As far as the game goes, we're going to break down the game in a couple of different ways. And the first thing we're going to look at is the accessibility. And the reason why we're going to take a look at that is because, again, these videos are meant for people to kind of figure out what games that they might want to sit down and play with their children. And so as far as the accessibility goes, is this game able to be taught and picked up very easily by children? So what did you think, Maddie? How long did it take you, would you say, before you really understood how to play this?
It took me about 5 minutes to learn. I still get a little confused with the business and the real estate, but I'm pretty much good at it.
So you're pretty confident in how to play with that now? Okay. The other aspect of it is just simply the fun factor of the game. Is this a game that kids are going to say, yes, I want to play this, and not feel like they're compelled to play it because their parents are asking them to play? And so the question I would ask you, Maddie, is what was fun about this game for you?
It was really fun because you got to choose everything you did. You didn't have to do one thing because you can't do the other. You can choose where to put it and stuff like that. Okay,
all right. The other factor of this that I like to look at is it going to hold the attention of the younger generation? Is this something that they're going to want to continue to play? And this is where there might be small amounts of downtime as you're playing the game, specifically because if you have multiple people playing and you have one person that hasn't decided what number they're going to use or what symbol they're going to use, that they might be holding it up a little bit, but that's very minimal. I would say that's maybe there was a couple of times when we were playing that I was waiting on Maddie or Maddie was waiting on me to place our number, but it was very minor. It really didn't seem like it took a lot of time. The next one is replayability. I think that this game has a very high level of replayability just simply because of the fact that every game seems to be a little bit different. I know that every time I've played this so far that I've gone into the game with a specific a goal. I'm going to finish the goal cards, or I'm going to try to place as many parks or as many pools as I can place. But every single time I've played it, I end up abandoning that strategy to go in a different direction simply based on the cards. What do you think about how often you could play this game, Eddie?
You can play it a lot, and every time I go in the game, I have the same goal: beat Daddy.
Oh, okay. How does that work out for you?
Most of the time, it does.
I'll see about that. The complexity level, I would classify this as a light filler game, as a game that you could play in between other games, or even just pick up and play after dinner real quick. It's not anything that I would say is going to take a very long time to play. I do think that the game kind of packs a small punch in the sense that there are decisions that have to be made. There really isn't a lot of randomness to it, other than the cards being flipped over. You're kind of at the mercy of what pops up. But the nice thing about it is you have 3 options to choose from. It's not like you're stuck.
Like 1, 2.
Yeah, and in the very beginning, you might seem like you're doing the exact same thing as the people that are sitting around you. But by the end of the game, you're ending up with a totally different setup of what the houses look like. There's a couple things that I think assist with the replayability factor of it, and that goes into play with some of these additional goals. You'll see up here there's a little asterisk, and there's different types of goals that you can get, like a full row of houses. Let's see another one here. Having different numbers of parks. And so adding these cards in might change the game up a little bit. I think as a whole, the game does offer a lot. They give you a pretty thick pad. The only complaint that I would say is why not print it on both sides so you can use multiple. The other thing that I would recommend is not using the pencils. Part of the reason why we ended up using pens in ours is because the pencils just don't show up very well. So this, while neat, and it's kind of cool that you get your own little pencils, I would end up using the pens instead. I do know that the game has been relaunched on Kickstarter for reprint. And the cool thing about that is they are adding a bunch of different stretch goals with different pads that have different themes. Like there's a Halloween themed pad, there's a zombie themed pad. That's not just a different theme. They actually have different ways of doing things as far as like what houses you trick or treat at, or putting up barricades to stop the zombie apocalypse. Hey, you didn't know about that, did you? And so I would strongly recommend that if this is not a game that you've picked up yet, or if it's a game that you've been thinking about, go check that Kickstarter out. It's doing very well right now, and they're knocking out stretch goals after stretch goal. I know that I'll be backing it in for all the extras in it. I believe they're going to have dry erase pads. There's an add-on where you can have a really nice wooden card holder. So a lot of really cool stuff. And so our forecast for this game is we're going to call this game Mostly Sunny with a chance of multiple plays. It is a game that I will have no problem sitting down and playing with Maddie or anybody else. It's also a game that I actually very highly enjoy playing solo. And so if you guys enjoyed this video, we would like you to subscribe to our page and click that bell, right, Maddie? That's what you're looking for, right? And maybe if this is something that you guys enjoy, we'll continue to make more videos down the road.